before I went into the courtroom, I had already lost and been sanctioned and been disbarred in my mind. I went to South Carolina for law school, and the typical sort of got into law school, started taking everything that I had to take, really didn't know what I wanted to do. Had some summer associate positions at law firms, kind of around the Southeast, and really just kind of got into that, sort of by choice, sort of by it's just the way the river took me. You get into law school and opportunities come along, and you end up in a job, and you take one that you get, and you're not sure if you're going to love it or not. And part of my story that I share with people is when I got out of law school, we moved up to Greenville, South Carolina, which is a couple of hours northwest of here. And I was working at a larger size law firm for South Carolina. And I was doing a lot of construction litigation, and I really didn't like it. And, part of it was kind of the subject matter. I was trying to figure out how to do this law thing. And I also didn't understand the construction side of things. And so it was just these two worlds that were like converging in a way that was really confusing. And it just wasn't super interesting. And that's also when I sort of started recognizing that I was dealing with some anxiety and some depression. And it took me a while to sort of get there and recognize that it was more than just, this is a difficult profession, and it can be a stressful one. And, it was, I got into this sort of pattern of everything was just super anxiety inducing for me. Every event in the course of a lawsuit was just, I was playing out the worst case scenario. If I had what we would consider a relatively, minor hearing that I was going to go handle, before I went into the courtroom, I had already lost and been sanctioned and been disbarred in my mind, because I was just like, I've forgotten to do something, or I did something wrong. And it was just, it was, frankly, it was really disappointing, because it was, I had done well in law school. I had gotten a job that I was excited about. And, I was married at the time, and we were about to have a new baby. And I was like, this career is just crushing me already. And it was bleeding over into sort of my home life and how I was feeling at home on nights and on the weekends. And I was like, man, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have gone down this path at all. Because it was just so stressful and so difficult to sort of enjoy the practice of law at that point. I tell folks, cut me off anytime that I'm telling too many stories, but I tell folks that I give this talk that I've given a lot over the years, that is sort of my story of anxiety and depression. And I tell folks that I'm a lawyer, but that I was never supposed to be a lawyer. And I know that because when I was in my third year of law school, I had one of those clinical courses where you get to kind of practice law alongside a professor. And I had this like juvenile criminal case that we were handling. And I had a friend of mine that was my partner for the case. And we went to court for this sort of minor hearing. These things are handled in family court in South Carolina. This sort of minor preliminary hearing for this case. And we go in and everything's fine. And we walk out of the courthouse, and we're standing there talking to the client, kind of telling him what's just happened and talking to his mom about what's coming up next. And literally while I'm standing there talking to him, a bird poops on my head. And the client looks at me, and he's like a 13-year-old kid. And he's like, Mr. Will, I think a bird just pooped on your head. And it 100% had. And so I tell people, like, that should have been my sign that, like, the second I stepped into a courtroom, that this wasn't what I was supposed to do with my life. But I marched on. So, I got to this point where I was like, I mean, maybe that bird outside the courthouse was right. Like, I don't know that I should even be doing this. And, in a lot of ways, I felt sort of overwhelmed by the profession and sort of trapped in it, because this was my first real job out of college and law school. Financially, I was doing fine, and it's not easy to pivot and just be like, I'm going to start all over and go do something completely different. And so, that was it was a hard first few years of practice for me.